welcome to the first of a series of videos about functions and getting into what a function is. So as we're learning algebra, as you're learning algebra in whatever class you're in, this idea of a function always comes up somewhere in the middle of it, and it's always a pretty significant idea. It really sets the table for future mathematics, but can be really tricky for students because it's like a whole, just as you're starting to learn about variables, just as you're starting to figure out equations and symbols, you get thrown a whole bunch other stuff, a bunch of F's and X's and parentheses and symbols and inputs and outputs, and hoping that as you go through this series, it'll help make sense of a lot of it. But let's go start with, for this first one, what is a definition of a function? We're going to talk about what a function is. So here's the actual definition. The definition of function is a relationship between two variables. So again, in algebra, we're really concerned about how two things will relate. So between two variables, x and y, I want to know how they relate to each other. So it's a relationship between two variables, x and y, such that each input value, x, has only, this is the significant part, I'm going to underline it, only one output value for y. So in other words, if I have a point, 3, there's my x value, and I get back a y value of 5, that's a point that I can plot. Again, there's my value for x and my value for y. A function would be every time I have an x value of 3, I only have a y value of 5. That's the definition of what a function is. So you want to write that down. You want to have that in the back of your mind. You want to think about, again, inputs and outputs. My x variable, what am I putting in for x? What am I getting back for y? And making sure as we work with pictures, as we work with equations, as we work with tables, and as we work with graphs, these are all ways where we can show relationships between x and y, right? To be a function, we're going to talk about, well, how does that look like? How does this definition work with pictures, equations, tables, and graphs? How do we see only one output for every input? But anyway, there's our beginning definition, a relationship between two variables as x and y are changing. Whenever I change and put an input value for x in, I get only one output value back for y.